The notification sound on my phone should have been my first warning that morning. It was 6:47 a.m., and I was already at my bakery, Sweet Endings, preparing for what should have been our biggest day of the year. The Thanksgiving pre-orders alone would cover 3 months of rent. But the message that lit up my screen made my blood run cold. Health violation notice, Sweet Endings Bakery, immediate closure required. My hands trembled as I read through the details. Anonymous complaint, rodent infestation, unsanitary conditions. A health inspector was scheduled to arrive in 30 minutes. I looked around my spotless kitchen, the one I'd scrubbed until 11 p.m. the night before. The stainless steel gleamed, every surface sparkled. We'd passed our inspection just 6 weeks ago with flying colors. This wasn't an accident, this was sabotage, and I knew exactly who was behind it. My mother-in-law, Patricia Thornton, had made her feelings about my business crystal clear from day one. "Baking cakes is a hobby, dear, not a career," she'd said with that practiced smile of hers. "When are you going to get a real job and give my son the life he deserves?" But this was war. The health inspector arrived precisely at 7:15 a.m. He was thorough, professional, and clearly confused when he found absolutely nothing wrong. No rodents, no violations, nothing but the sweet smell of vanilla and cinnamon rolls rising in the oven. "Mrs. Thornton," he said, checking his clipboard, "I'm not sure who filed this complaint, but everything here looks exemplary. I'll file my report, but..." He hesitated. "This feels like harassment. You might want to consider filing a police report." I thanked him, waited for him to leave, and then I let myself cry. Just for 2 minutes. That's all I allowed myself before I wiped my tears, squared my shoulders, and got back to work. I had 73 Thanksgiving orders to complete. My customers were counting on me. Patricia Thornton could wait, but she couldn't let it go. At 9:30 a.m., my business phone started ringing, customer after customer, all with the same story. They'd received calls that morning from someone claiming to be my assistant, informing them that their orders had been canceled due to unforeseen circumstances. I didn't have an assistant. By 10 a.m., I'd lost 23 orders, 23 families who now thought I was unreliable, 23 deposits I'd have to refund from money I'd already spent on ingredients. My husband, James, arrived at the bakery just after lunch. His face was pale, his jaw tight. Tell me my mother didn't do this? I showed him the call logs, the canceled orders, the health department notice. He closed his eyes. "I'll talk to her." "No," I surprised myself with the firmness in my voice. "Don't talk to her. Not yet." James looked at me, confusion crossing his features. We'd been married for 7 years, and he knew that tone. That was my planning tone, my scheming tone. "What are you thinking?" he asked slowly. I pulled up my laptop and opened a folder I'd been maintaining for the past 3 years. Screenshots, text messages, voice recordings, every passive-aggressive comment, every undermining action, every boundary Patricia had crossed. But that wasn't enough for what she'd just done. "I'm thinking," I said carefully, "that it's time we had a real conversation with your mother, at Thanksgiving dinner, in front of the whole family." James's eyes widened. "Sarah, you can't. She tried to destroy my livelihood, James. She tried to ruin my reputation. She crossed a line. And I've been doing some research into your mother's past. Did you know she takes a business trip to Portland every other month, always the second weekend? She has clients there. She's a real estate consultant." "That's what she tells you." I turned my laptop toward him. "I hired a private investigator 3 months ago, just to see why she hated me so much, why she seemed so desperate to keep me away from the family." On the screen was a photo of Patricia Thornton, but she wasn't alone. She was with a man I'd never seen before, his arm around her waist. And beside them were 2 teenagers, a boy and a girl, laughing at something Patricia was saying. They looked like a family. James leaned closer to the screen, his face draining of color. What is this?" "Your mother," I said softly, "has a second family in Portland, a husband of 15 years, Thomas Martinez, 2 kids, ages 13 and 16. She's been living a double life for longer than you and I have been married." The silence in my bakery was deafening. Outside, I could hear traffic passing by, the normal sounds of a busy pre-Thanksgiving Wednesday. Inside, James's entire world was cracking apart. How long have you known?" His voice was barely a whisper. 3 weeks. I've been trying to figure out what to do with the information, whether to tell you at all. I reached for his hand. And then she did this. She tried to destroy everything I've built. And I realized she's not trying to keep me away from your family. She's trying to keep everyone from looking too closely at her life. James sat down heavily on one of my kitchen stools. My father, does he know? I don't think so. The investigator found records. She maintains 2 separate identities. Patricia Thornton here, Patricia Martinez in Portland. Different social security numbers, though I'm not sure how that's even legal. Your dad still thinks she's traveling for work. Show me everything. For the next hour, I walked James through what I'd discovered. The photos, the property records showing a house in Portland under both Patricia's and Thomas's names, school records for the kids, a complete parallel life that Patricia had been maintaining with meticulous care. She's been stealing from him, James said suddenly, pointing at a bank statement. These withdrawals, $10,000 here, $15,000 there. My dad's retirement account. She's been siphoning money to support her other family. I nodded. I'd noticed that too. So what do we do? James asked, looking up at me with red-rimmed eyes. What's your plan for Thanksgiving? I took a deep breath. We go to dinner like everything's normal. We bring proof of everything, the false health complaint, the canceled orders, her double life. And when she inevitably makes some comment about my little bakery project, we lay it all out, in front of your father, your sisters, everyone. That will destroy our family, James said quietly. No, I corrected him gently. Your mother already destroyed your family. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth. He was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, but I have one condition. What's that? We tell my father first, privately, before dinner. He deserves that much. I agreed. It was the right thing to do, even if it meant Patricia might get wind of what was coming. The next 36 hours passed in a blur of baking, planning, and rehearsing what we'd say. I completed all my remaining Thanksgiving orders, working until my hands cramped and my feet ached. Each perfectly decorated pie, each golden brown roll, each elaborate centerpiece cake was a small act of defiance. Patricia Thornton had tried to break me. Instead, I'd risen at 4 a.m. and baked my way through her sabotage. By Thanksgiving morning, I was exhausted but ready. James and I had compiled everything into a presentation folder. Yes, an actual folder with tabs and documentation. I wasn't going to let emotion undermine facts. We arrived at his parents' house at 2 p.m., an hour before dinner was scheduled. James's father, Robert, answered the door with his usual warm smile. Sarah, James, come in. Patricia's in the kitchen putting the finishing touches on the turkey. He leaned in conspiratorially. Between you and me, I think she's nervous. She invited more people this year than usual. James and I exchanged glances. More people meant more witnesses to whatever Patricia had planned. She probably expected me to cancel, to be too devastated by her sabotage to show up. Dad, James said, can we talk to you privately for a few minutes before everyone else arrives? Robert's smile faded slightly. Is everything all right? Please, Dad, it's important. We ended up in Robert's study, the same room where he'd welcomed me into the family 7 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. James took the lead, and I was grateful. This was his father, his family, his heartbreak to deliver. Dad, I need to show you something, and I need you to keep an open mind until you've seen everything. Robert nodded slowly, settling into his leather chair. James opened the folder. Robert Thornton's face went through a journey as James walked him through each piece of evidence. Confusion, denial, disbelief, and finally a grief so profound it made my chest ache. 15 years, he whispered, staring at a photo of Patricia with her Portland family. According to the property records, they bought the house together in 2010, I said gently, but the investigator thinks the relationship might go back further. Robert picked up another document, bank statements, highlighting the suspicious withdrawals. His hand shook slightly. I thought we were saving for retirement. He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. James knelt beside his father's chair. I'm so sorry, Dad. Sarah only found out 3 weeks ago. We were trying to figure out the right way to tell you. And then she tried to destroy Sarah's business, Robert said, his voice hardening. He looked at me with an expression that was part apology, part rage. She called in a false health inspection? She canceled your orders? I nodded. I have recordings of some of the calls from the number Patricia uses. She disguised her voice, but I had an audio analyst confirm it's her. Robert stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, cars were beginning to arrive. James's sisters, Karen and Michelle, with their families. Patricia's brother, Uncle Greg, the cousins. "Everyone's here," Robert said flatly. "She planned this, a big family Thanksgiving." He turned to look at us. "Did she know you'd found out?" "I don't think so," James said. "I think she was expecting Sarah to cancel, to be too humiliated to show up after what she did." A knock on the study door made us all freeze. Patricia's voice, sweet and tinkling like wind chimes, called out, "Robert, are you in there? Karen and Michelle have arrived, and I need help carrying the extra chairs from the garage." The three of us looked at each other. Robert's jaw was set, his hands clenched into fists. "We can leave," I whispered. "You don't have to do this today. You need time to process." "No." Robert's voice was firm. "She's been lying to me for 15 years. She tried to ruin your business out of spite. She's stolen from our retirement fund." He looked at James. "Your mother has made her choices. Now she gets to live with the consequences." He walked to the door and opened it. Patricia stood there, perfect in her cream cashmere sweater and pearls, her blonde hair styled in soft waves. She looked every inch the elegant matriarch, the picture of suburban grace. Her eyes swept past Robert to land on me, and for just a fraction of a second, I saw surprise flicker across her face. She'd expected me to be broken, defeated, missing from this gathering. Instead, I stood there with my husband and father-in-law, and I smiled. "Sarah," Patricia said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "What a lovely surprise. I wasn't sure you'd make it after your difficulties this week. I heard about the health department issue. Such a shame." "We need to talk, Patricia," Robert said quietly. "After dinner, the whole family. There are some things that need to be discussed." For the first time since I'd known her, Patricia Thornton looked uncertain. "What things, darling? Is everything all right?" "No," Robert said simply, "but it will be. After tonight, everything will be very clear." Patricia's mask slipped just a bit. Her eyes darted between the three of us, calculating, assessing. "Well, that sounds ominous. I hope this isn't about that ridiculous business loan you wanted, James. I told you, investing in a bakery is throwing money away." "It's not about the bakery," James said, his voice ice cold, "though we'll be discussing your actions towards Sarah's business as well." "My actions?" Patricia laughed, but it sounded forced. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a turkey to carve." She swept away, but her shoulders were tense, her movements just slightly too stiff. The next 2 hours were surreal. We gathered around the massive dining table Patricia had spent days decorating. 22 people, 3 generations, all laughing and talking and passing dishes of stuffing and cranberry sauce. Patricia held court at one end of the table, telling stories and accepting compliments on the meal. Robert sat at the other end, saying almost nothing, his eyes never leaving his wife. I caught Karen, James's older sister, watching the dynamic with confusion. She leaned over to me at one point and whispered, "Is Dad okay? He seems off." "He's had some difficult news," I said carefully. "You'll understand soon." Across the table, Patricia was telling Uncle Greg about her latest business success in Portland. "The market there is absolutely booming," she gushed. "I've been working with several clients on investment properties. In fact, I've been spending so much time there, I'm practically a local." James's grip on his fork tightened. I put my hand on his knee under the table, a silent reminder. Wait, let her dig her own grave. Finally, after the pies were served and the coffee was poured, Robert stood up. He tapped his glass with his spoon, calling for attention. "I want to thank you all for coming today," he began. His voice was steady, but I could see the tremor in his hands. "Family is everything to me. Honesty, trust, these are the values I've tried to build my life on." Patricia smiled, clearly thinking this was going to be some sentimental toast. "That's lovely, Robert." "Which is why," he continued, speaking over her, "it breaks my heart to share what I learned today. Patricia, would you like to tell everyone about your family in Portland, or should I?" The room went absolutely silent. Even the children stopped fidgeting. Patricia's face went white, then red. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you've had too much wine, dear." Thomas Martinez, Robert said clearly, your husband of 15 years. Lucas and Emma, your 13 and 16-year-old children. The house at 847 Willow Creek Drive that you purchased together in 2010. Karen gasped. Michelle's hand flew to her mouth. That's absurd, Patricia said, but her voice shook. Robert, this is obviously some kind of misunderstanding. I have clients in Portland. I've explained this. James stood up, opening the folder we'd brought. He began laying out photos on the table. Patricia at a school play. Patricia with her arm around Thomas at what looked like a birthday party. Patricia and her Portland family at the beach, everyone smiling. Stop it, Patricia hissed, reaching for the photos. You have no right. You have no right, I said, standing up as well. You have no right to live a double life while stealing from your family here. You have no right to try to destroy my business because you were afraid I'd discover your secret. All eyes turned to me. Tuesday morning, I continued, your mother called in a false health department complaint against my bakery. She spent the entire morning calling my customers, pretending to be my assistant, canceling Thanksgiving orders that people had been counting on. She tried to ruin me. And why? Because I was getting too close to the truth. That's a lie, Patricia shrieked, abandoning all pretense of composure. I would never. I didn't. I have recordings, I said calmly. I have phone records. I have witnesses. And I have 3 years of documentation showing a pattern of harassment and undermining behavior. All because you needed to keep everyone's attention off you. Uncle Greg stood up slowly. Patricia, is this true? Do you have another family? Patricia looked around the table at all the shocked, hurt faces staring at her. Her children, her brother, her grandchildren. There was no way out, no lie smooth enough to cover this. She started, then stopped. Her shoulder sagged. It's really not, Robert said, his voice breaking. You either do or you don't have another family. You either did or didn't steal from our retirement fund to support them. You either did or didn't try to destroy our daughter-in-law's business out of spite. She was going to ruin everything, Patricia suddenly shouted, pointing at me. She's always asking questions, always wanting to know more about me, always trying to get involved with the family. I knew it was only a matter of time before she discovered the truth. I had to do something. The admission hung in the air, damning in its clarity. Karen stood up, her face flushed with anger. So you tried to destroy her livelihood. Mom, what is wrong with you? You don't understand, Patricia said desperately. None of you understand. I built that life in Portland because I needed something more, something that was mine. Robert was always working. You kids were always busy. I was alone. So you committed bigamy and fraud? Michelle said incredulously. That's your excuse? I want a divorce, Robert said quietly. The words cut through Patricia's rambling justification like a knife. I'll be filing papers tomorrow. You can stay in Portland now, Patricia. It's clearly where you want to be. Patricia's face crumpled. Robert, please, we can work through this. It was a mistake. I can explain. 15 years is not a mistake, he said. It's a choice. Multiple choices, every single day. You chose them over us. You chose lies over truth. And you chose to hurt someone I consider a daughter because of your own guilt and fear. He looked at me, and his eyes were wet. Sarah, I'm so sorry. For what she did to your business, for the years of mistreatment. You deserved better from this family. I felt tears prick my own eyes. Thank you, Robert. That means everything. The Thanksgiving dinner that was supposed to showcase Patricia's perfect family instead became the stage for its complete unraveling. Patricia left that night, Uncle Greg driving her, after she'd proven too hysterical to be behind the wheel. She kept crying about how we'd ambushed her, how we'd destroyed everything, conveniently forgetting that she'd built her life on a foundation of lies. The rest of the family stayed, too shocked to leave. We ended up in the living room, Robert sitting in his armchair, looking 20 years older than he had that morning. How did you afford it? Karen asked, the question we'd all been wondering. 2 houses, 2 families. The money had to come from somewhere. James pulled out the financial documents. She's been stealing from Dad's retirement account for years. Small amounts at first, then larger sums. There's about $300,000 missing. Michelle let out a low whistle. That's felony territory. I know, Robert said tiredly. I spoke with my attorney while you were all talking. He says we have grounds for criminal charges. But, he rubbed his face, she's still the mother of my children. I don't want to put your siblings through that. Her other kids, Karen said bitterly. Don't forget, we apparently have a 13 and 16-year-old half-brother and half-sister. That particular reality hadn't quite sunk in yet. James and his sisters had grown up as 3 siblings, never knowing their mother had started a completely different family on the side. Do they know about us? James wondered aloud. The kids in Portland? According to the investigator, no, I said. Patricia kept the 2 lives completely separate. She told them she was a traveling consultant who had to spend time on the East Coast for work. She showed them fake business cards, fake meeting schedules. She was meticulous. Psychotic is more like it, Michelle muttered. Over the next few weeks, the full scope of Patricia's deception came to light. Robert hired a forensic accountant who discovered she'd actually stolen close to $400,000 over the years, using carefully timed withdrawals that wouldn't trigger alerts. She'd also taken out credit cards in Robert's name to fund her double life, running up debt he knew nothing about. The Portland family was shocked to discover the truth. Thomas Martinez had genuinely believed he was married to Patricia for 15 years. Their kids were devastated to learn their mother had another complete family she'd never mentioned. Patricia had told them her family was dead, that she was alone in the world except for them. That particular lie seemed to cut the deepest. Lucas and Emma reached out through their father, awkwardly trying to connect with the siblings they'd never known existed. It was Karen who took the lead there, her nurturing instincts kicking in. They're innocent in this, she said. They're victims too. As for my bakery, the story of what Patricia had done spread through our community like wildfire. The health department issued a public apology and a statement clarifying that the complaint had been malicious and unfounded. Local news picked up the story. Local businesswoman targeted in mother-in-law's revenge scheme. And suddenly I had more customers than I knew what to do with. People came in not just for baked goods, but to offer support. I had a toxic mother-in-law too, more than one person told me. Good for you for standing up to her. Sweet Endings went from struggling to thriving seemingly overnight. I had to hire 2 additional staff members just to keep up with demand. The Thanksgiving that was supposed to ruin me instead launched my business to a whole new level. But the real vindication came 6 weeks later. Robert's divorce attorney had filed papers immediately, and Patricia was fighting it tooth and nail. She wanted alimony, she wanted the house, she wanted Robert to understand her position. What she got was a subpoena. Thomas Martinez, it turned out, was just as furious as Robert. He'd also filed for divorce and was pursuing criminal charges for fraud. Patricia had forged his signature on loan documents, destroyed his credit rating, and left him financially devastated. The criminal investigation into Patricia's activities was extensive. 2 different identities with 2 different social security numbers, tax evasion, wire fraud, identity theft, the list went on and on. She ended up pleading guilty to multiple felonies in exchange for a reduced sentence. 3 years in federal prison, 7 years of probation, and restitution orders for both families. James struggled with it all. She's still my mother, he said one night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling. How do I reconcile the woman who raised me with the person who did all of this? I don't think you have to reconcile it, I said gently. People are complicated. She can be both the mother you remember and the person who made terrible choices. Both things can be true. Do you hate her? He asked. I thought about it. No, I did for a while, but now I mostly feel sad. She had everything, a family who loved her, a comfortable life, opportunities, and she threw it all away because she wanted more, or maybe because she didn't know how to be satisfied with what she had. She destroyed so many lives trying to live 2 of them, James said, including her own. The Thanksgiving the following year was different, smaller, quieter. Robert hosted again, but this time there were new faces around the table. Lucas and Emma, the half-siblings who were slowly, carefully building relationships with James, Karen, and Michelle. Thomas Martinez came too, at Robert's invitation. The two men had formed an unlikely friendship, bonded by their shared experience of betrayal and the complicated task of co-parenting children who shared a mother neither of them truly knew. I brought pies from Sweet Endings: pumpkin, pecan, apple crumble. Business was still booming, and I just signed a lease on a second location. Ironic that Patricia's attempt to destroy my business had instead been the catalyst for its explosive growth. "I need to say something," Robert said when we were all gathered. He stood at the head of the table, looking around at all of us, his biological children, the children he'd just learned existed, his ex-wife's ex-husband, and me, the daughter-in-law who'd exposed the truth. Last year at this time, I thought I knew my life. I thought I understood my family, my marriage, my place in the world. Sarah and James showed me the truth, and it shattered everything I thought I knew. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "But here's what I've learned. The truth, even when it's painful, is always better than a lie. These past 12 months have been the hardest of my life, but they've also brought me gifts I never expected." He looked at Lucas and Emma. "I have 2 more children, wonderful kids who are teaching this old man about TikTok and how to text with proper emojis." That got a laugh. "I have a friend," he nodded at Thomas, "who understands what I've been through in a way no one else can. And I have a family," he looked around the table, "that chose honesty over comfort, that was brave enough to blow up everything rather than live with a lie." He raised his glass. "So this Thanksgiving, I'm grateful for the truth. I'm grateful for second chances, and I'm grateful that when it mattered most, the people at this table chose to do the right thing, even when it was hard." We all raised our glasses, and I felt James squeeze my hand under the table. Later, as we were clearing dishes, Emma, the 16-year-old daughter Patricia had hidden from us, approached me in the kitchen. "Can I ask you something?" she said, nervously. "Of course." "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't found out, if you just let it go?" I thought about the false health inspection, the canceled orders, the years of subtle undermining and boundary crossing. I thought about the life Patricia had built on lies and how it was always going to collapse eventually. "I think the truth always comes out," I said. "Maybe not when we want it to, but eventually. Your mom was living an impossible life. She couldn't maintain it forever. But you could have not told everyone. You could have just told Robert privately or even just let her keep getting away with it." I looked at this teenage girl who was still processing the revelation that her entire childhood had been built on a lie. "Your mom tried to destroy something I built from nothing," I said gently. "My business represents years of work, sacrifice, and dreams. When she attacked it, she crossed a line, not just with me, but with basic decency. Sometimes standing up for yourself means other people get hurt, but letting someone abuse you isn't kindness, it's just self-destruction." Emma nodded slowly. "She never told us about you, about James and Karen and Michelle. I had siblings my whole life and didn't know it. That wasn't your fault, or theirs. That was your mother's choice." "I know, it's just..." She trailed off, then looked at me with eyes that were remarkably like James's. "Thank you for telling the truth. Everyone says you destroyed our family, but I think maybe you just showed us what was really there all along." Out of everything that came from that Thanksgiving revelation, the divorce, the criminal charges, the media attention, that moment with Emma might have been the most important. Because she was right. I hadn't destroyed the family. Patricia had done that, the moment she decided one life wasn't enough and chose to build another on a foundation of lies. I'd just been the one brave enough, or maybe just angry enough, to turn on the lights. 1 year later. Patricia served her 3 years in federal prison and was released on probation last month. I haven't seen her, though James has visited a few times. He says she's different now, quieter, more subdued. She's living in a small apartment in Portland, working as a cashier at a grocery store, trying to rebuild some kind of relationship with Lucas and Emma. Thomas has been generous about allowing her back into their lives, though their relationship will never be what it was. Some betrayals are too fundamental to overcome. Robert started dating again 6 months ago. A nice woman named Carol who owns a bookshop. She knows everything about what happened and loves him anyway. Sweet Endings now has 3 locations, and I'm in talks to open a 4th. I hired Karen as my business manager. Turns out she's brilliant with numbers and logistics. We make a good team. And James? He's healing, slowly. The revelation about his mother's double life shook something fundamental in him, made him question his own childhood and memories. But therapy has helped, and having relationships with Lucas and Emma has given him something positive to focus on. As for me, I learned something valuable from the whole experience. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply tell the truth. Not in a cruel way, not for revenge, but because lies, even comfortable ones, are toxic. They poison everything they touch. Patricia Thornton tried to destroy my business because she was afraid of the truth. Instead, she lost everything: her marriage, her family, her freedom, her reputation. All because she couldn't face the consequences of her own choices. I don't hate her anymore. I don't think about her much, honestly. My life is too full of good things. A thriving business, a strong marriage, a family that chose honesty over convenience. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm reviewing the next day's orders, I remember that Thanksgiving. The moment when Patricia realized her carefully constructed lies were crumbling, the shock on everyone's faces as the truth came out. And I remember thinking, this is what justice looks like. Not revenge, not cruelty, but simply the truth spoken out loud where everyone can hear it. She tried to destroy my business, so I told the truth about her life. And in the end, we both got what we deserved. If you enjoy this story, kindly comment, like, and subscribe. For more stories like this, dive into the channel.